them come. This is their fate.
Josh, because you playing Gotham Knights and it's fresh in my mind, let's start there. Gotham
Gotham
Knights,
Knights.
Josh. Let's give me a quick
Gotham Knights.
4-minute rundown of your experience so far.
We've been looking forward to it, like the game at first, and then like it started having like controversy with like the graphics options and the price and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
so just to preface it, I played the Arkham games. I enjoyed them. I Batman has never been my favorite superhero, but the games were fun enough that I was always interested in them. So this one picked it up mainly because I wanted to just see like how bad it was because like the reviews were coming out. It was mostly mixed, but some of the bigger like outlets were giving it like fours and stuff. And I was like, how can they have messed this up this bad? So, anyways, I booted up. The first thing, like I was telling you, is that the game runs bad,
Yeah.
and no matter what you play it on, it runs bad. So the PS4 and Xbox, they're locked to 30, or they're capped to 30, but you're not even getting 30 in most cases. You're getting between low 20s, mid 20s, unless you're in like a single player story mission, which that I will highlight is it seems like when you play like the main story missions, like when you're inside of a when you're not in the open world, it's you're in a separate building or whatever, it
Yeah.
runs perfectly fine. But all the issues come up when you go out into the open world, and your frame rate is going to drop between 30 to 60, and it seems like they just did a really bad job at optimizing the open world stuff, and that's all of my problems with it seems to come from like that decision to like really make it a co-op open world. If they didn't do that, the game is actually fine. Like I actually really enjoy it. The combat is a lot. It doesn't seem like it, and it's hard to, I guess, show it in like their trailers, but it's not the Arkham combat. It's like more straightforward. Like you just, there's no counter button, so you're not just like waiting
Waiting
for
for
people to
somebody
attack
to
you.
bait you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a punch button, a range button, and then a dodge button, and like it feels okay. I can see like how it can be repetitive, especially like if the enemies are damage sponges. But at least
Yeah.
early game, you ain't got to worry about damage sponges or anything like that. So it's fun. Graphically, it looks okay.
Mm.
I don't think it's worth the performance hits that you get, like when you turn on ray tracing. Like it looks okay. Gotham Knights and the other games look a lot better artistically.
Mm.
But anyways, yeah, my main point is that I enjoy the single player stuff. Everything else that comes into the open world and multiplayer stuff is weak. Like the open world is pretty straightforward. It's pretty basic. Like if you play Watch Dogs or Assassin's Creed, like you've seen this type of open world before. Go
Yeah.
around, do random stuff, and that unlocks more story missions. Um, the co-op I haven't played yet. One, because I like to play games by myself, but like every time I tried to connect, the game would crash. So I tried co-op like 5 times. Like 4 of those 5 times, the game crashed as soon as I connected to the host. The fifth
So
time, yeah, the fifth time I was able to get into a match. Ran around with the dude for like 2 minutes. Um, then he, stood around doing nothing and then quit. I was like, okay, so a big waste of time. In which if this was a completely separate mode for people who want to do that, that would
mhm.
have been fine. It wouldn't have impacted everybody else who doesn't want any of that stuff because I just really just want to play this as like, which you can. It's a single player game still, but the design of the game is made for this online co-op in which it's not good. So it seems like wasted time and resources in which I probably could have just made a really good game. I don't think it's a 4, probably like a 6 or whatever, depending on how bad the the grind
6 out of 10. Is that
gets.
what you're trying to say? 6 out of 10.
Well, for me, I'm enjoying it more than the 6, but I
Oh.
think that once you complete the game and like I said, how depending on how bad it gets with like the loot grind, it might drop down to like a 6 or something like that. But yeah, I guess did you see anything that you were curious about from like the reviews or coverage of it?
Nah, I mean the thing that was intrigued me the most was really just the story. Everything else I kind of figured. When I first saw the game, I figured it was going to be a bland open world, and I felt like it was going to be like a mixture of two games that they didn't know where to go finish. So
Hmm.
it was like this middle ground of hollowness that I was already anticipating, and that's exactly what I thought it was going to be. They what's everyone is saying is basically is that this game was supposed to be more multiplayer than they leading on, and they decided to add in the stuff and change stuff afterwards, and like these now you live with this shell of the game and have all these different type of currencies, these different type of mode and things, and it just doesn't make any
Yeah,
sense.
it definitely
So
feels like they wanted a Avengers game,
yeah,
and then changed their mind halfway through it
after
because the
Avengers
game
came out,
it
because nobody liked it.
yeah, because so far I like everything in there
Hmm.
more than the Avengers. Like the combat feels better. The
Yeah,
It actually has an open world, not just like random kind of like missions and stuff like
you're right.
Avengers did. But since they removed all the extra online stuff, it feels like yeah, it's a lot of tacked on stuff going on here that I don't know. Maybe they needed, which I don't know. They might have taken another 2 3 years to like remove all the stuff or like build on top of it. But it really just seems like they would have been better off picking one direction and sticking to it. Like even if this was exactly like the Avengers or it was completely online, it might have actually been good if they put the time into it because
Yeah.
the combat and everything I actually think is more fun than the Avengers. But yeah, it was a big risk to follow up a game like the Avengers after that came out was bad.
Yeah, and then sparking the 30 FPS conversation and all that good jazz. It just kind of it insinuated that something that the Series S or the consoles did that caused it to be this crappy. And
Yeah,
truly, the
that's
game
a lie.
is just crappy. So stop that.
Yeah,
I need the developers to stop pretending as if there was something that was needed to be done. It was like literally this game is running on 4090s sub 60. That is a trash, poorly optimized game. It's not like the game itself is bad, but you guys did not optimize the game properly. So stop pretending as if you did. And it was just so tough to get it on the Series S. Like literally, you would have had a cyberpunk situation if they did not drop those old consoles. Like that is what
yeah,
this
and
is.
even Cyberpunk runs well on the Series S, and it's like
Yeah,
the game is like the optimization is a zero, like a zero
yeah,
out of 10 because like going through all the PC stuff and it's the same on console. The game is like CPU limited, in which it's not using all of the CPU threads correctly. Like it'll use one thread and that thread will get to 100%, and then it'll try to use another one. But at that point, you've already dropped frames because you've reached 100% and it, um, lagged. Whereas like the fix for the PC version, instead of dropping all of your settings to the lowest hoping that it'll raise your frame rate because it doesn't. You'll still jump between 20 and 60. The workaround is to max out the graphics to force the game to use all of your CPU cores, and then you'll get a more consistent frame rate, which is completely counterintuitive because the developer didn't do a good job of actually optimizing the game. It's just
yes, exactly.
they put everything in the game and said, here, go with it. And
Yeah,
it just doesn't run well. And the Series
exactly.
S, yeah, obviously the Series S wouldn't run this because you have to actually tailor it to cut back some certain stuff. Like I know like they
And
have
it's
settings for like draw distance and stuff like that,
mhm.
but if it's not working, like you really got to go in there like delete cars, remove NPCs, lower your textures, whatever you got to do to get it to run on that platform. And you know, I guess they didn't
What's
have time
even
for that.
funnier is that the Series S is the console that is running it at a closer to the lock 30 than everything else. It's because of the lower resolution. Like it's actually performing better at keeping the 30 FPS than the Series X and the PS5. so they can really miss me. Like, it's kind of like it just feels as if it was. There's a shift currently. There's a shift in gaming in general and how people are prioritizing other things outside of crunching, being more dedicated to the work. It's this quiet quitting phenomenon, and these developers are feeling it heavily. They relied on too many people to do too much, and we can see the fruits of relying on one person and not really building up the next up and coming, because those next up and coming people, oh, they're not going to do what you think the other people are going to do. Like, they're not going to take your low wages, and they're not going to run like sheep to every little problem that there is and try to work over like hours and hours just to try to fix things. You're going to put out a crap game, and there's it's unfortunate now that we only have like we have to praise games that come out in a great state, because there's so many that don't, and it's solely based off that. Like, I honestly believe that the culture of development has changed so much over the last 3 years that they have yet to bring in or adjust to the situation, because like there's plenty of games that have come out. There's plenty of games that haven't had this, but there's plenty of games that have come out. Big AAA games, I'm talking. Not even like indies or anything like that. Indies are usually they're based around and bound by the little small team, so they already understand the workload. These AAA games where they have people on payroll, they have to pay these people, and they expect more when they don't even provide them the resources necessary or the time to be able to work-life balance. This is what you get. This is what you get. Like, every time. Like, all these games are coming out and they're just poorly done. And it's amazing to me. Like, it's amazing. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to God of War just simply off the base off polish. Bayonetta 3 probably going to be really good optimized, because those types of companies, they just have to. I mean, Platinum doesn't have to. They have made plenty of crappy games lately, but I think Bayonetta 3 is probably going to be one of those ones they can't just mess up. So, and Nintendo doesn't have a track record of putting out crap. So it's mostly these other brands, these other companies that really don't understand or really get what we are trying to do mostly. So, or what they're trying to do. So yeah, I just it's all over the place, man. This whole Plague Tale Requiem, this whole we're gonna jump back into the 30 FPS, 40 FPS situation. I disagree. There's plenty of games that have like really exceeded and expanded the expectations of this Gotham Knights, like Arkham Knight. You know, it's just so many. You know, it's so many cases that you can research and review to show that this is not true. Nobody ever thought that all games were going to be 60 FPS, but we thought the ones that were AAA big titles, they would have a secondary mode. To not have it is kind of interesting. So,
Yeah,
Gotham
not
Knight
having it
tells a
is
different
is a
story.
choice. It's not that you
Yeah,
can't do it. It's you have to choose to do it. And by not choosing it, like not everybody has to do it, but like you at least have to be upfront with it. Like,
yeah,
no, we can't do it. Like, not because of the Series S. It's like we don't have the time and resources to do it. And I think
absolutely.
that is, people would still be upset about it, but that's more acceptable excuse that, like, okay, you at least acknowledge like this is your fault and go from there.
Have we as consumers adjusted to waiting for, if a game like something like God of War Ragnarok